Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Laura Kendall, and I lead marketing here at InnoVint. In case any of you aren't familiar, InnoVint is a cloud-based winery operating system. We help wineries of all sizes efficiently manage their wine production processes, their vineyard tracking, cost accounting, as well as compliance and reporting. But we aren't here to talk about InnoVint today. We are here to talk about building a positive winery culture. For those of you that have been following us along, this is our third and final session in our Wine Business Health webinar series. And with a rockstar all-female panel like we have today, I think we might have saved the best for last. So without further ado, let's get started. We have a jam-packed agenda for this hour together. To start, I'll quickly go through some housekeeping things. Then I'm going to spend a few minutes to give everyone a sneak peek into the results of our State of Wine Business Health Survey. And then I'll pass it to our experts, Ashley, Remi, and Janie. We will reserve time at the end for questions, so be sure to have those ready. Everyone is muted, but we do have the chat open so we can make this interactive. Would love to hear where everyone's dialing in from. Feel free to use the chat to share that. And we are recording this. So if any of you have to step away or you miss any key takeaways, we'll be sharing the full recording via email after today's event. Like I mentioned, we will be taking questions at the end, so you can submit those in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. And then lastly, we'd love to hear your feedback after the event. You'll be prompted with the survey, and that'll help us make sure that we bring more content and better understand what's helpful. That's it. So getting into this survey, in May and June, we ran an industry survey, which many of you likely saw or participated in. Our goal was to assess the current state of wine business health across three vital dimensions: their financial, operational, and cultural. We collected over 450 responses from winery leaders and professionals, and we're currently in the process of analyzing all those results, but we've already uncovered some interesting insights that are relevant to these conversations. So we wanted to give a quick sneak peek before we get into the panel discussion today. Since we're focusing on cultural health, let's look at the data through that lens. To start, we asked winery professionals how they would rate their winery's culture on a scale from "this is the best company I've ever worked for" to "this company has a toxic or rotten culture." What we found is that 81% of winery professionals believe their company has a supportive or excellent company culture, which is great. On the right, you can see some of the anecdotes we collected, which really sheds light into what causes these winery professionals to perceive their culture as either good or bad. So things like having a vision, supporting employees, leadership that's transparent with company goals, those are coming up as positive things related to culture. On the other hand, poor communication, difficulty getting necessary resources, challenges with cross-functional interactions, those are coming up as negative things related to culture. Great news is we're going to be actually diving into a lot of these topics today. Then we compared the data against other factors to really understand the impact that winery culture has on other parts of the business. We found that there's a strong correlation, strong link between company culture and employee satisfaction. 42% of wineries with a rotten culture have dissatisfied employees, compared to only 2% with great culture. And there's a strong link between culture and employee turnover, with 81% of wineries that have rotten culture seeing very high turnover compared to only 9% with great culture. That is to say, wineries that have great company culture, they have more satisfied employees and less turnover. Probably not so surprising, but the data is still pretty compelling and pretty validating. We also asked respondents about how they'd rate their wineries in terms of their operational health and efficiency. And we saw a strong correlation between the two, with 72% of wineries with great culture also having great operations and acting as more efficient businesses, while wineries with poor culture seeing significantly less success operationally, with only 19% of them rating themselves as great. Oops, one more time. We also asked respondents about how they would rate their wineries in terms of their financial health. Again, we saw a correlation between the two, with 60% of wineries with great culture having great financials, compared to only 12% of wineries that have poor culture. And then the last data point before we move on that I want to share with everyone is around a winery's involvement in the community. 79% of culturally healthy wineries are actively involved in the community, compared to only 20% with poor cultural health. Bottom line is that wineries that are more involved in the community, for example, sharing their learnings and best practices in a format like this webinar series, have better company cultures overall. In summary, creating and sustaining a positive culture, and the reason we're here today is because it's crucial for winery success. Obviously, it enhances employee satisfaction, employee turnover, things of that nature, but it also drives better business results operationally and financially. We're excited to share a bit more about the data and the analysis that we're doing, and we'll be publishing a full report soon, so stay tuned. With that, let's get to the meat of today's conversation, our panel discussion on cultural health. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Ashley Leonard, InnoVint CEO and founder. A little bit about Ashley. She received her V&E degree from UC Davis before spending about a decade making wine and running wineries. And then 10 years ago, she started InnoVint to help bring modern technology to the wine industry. Similar to InnoVint, the reason why we're so passionate about helping wineries run better, healthier businesses is because of her. So no doubt she's a very credible moderator and contributor to today's discussion. So Ashley, I'm going to pass it to you.
Thank you, Laura. Here we are, our last, but definitely not least, webinar of the three-part series, as she said, this time focused on winery cultural health. Really, why would financial or operational health matter if you have poor culture and your team is dissatisfied? That's pretty much what Laura just validated, as showcased by the data from our benchmark report. Financial, operational, and cultural health go hand in hand, and the healthiest of companies are successful in not just one, not even just two, but all three of those elements of the business. I was telling Remi and Janie earlier this week that I got targeted on social with a business cultural health quote that resonated at the time, and I felt it was impactful enough to share with all of you today to set the scene for the conversation. So I have abbreviated it. It is by Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, if you know him. He's a serial entrepreneur, highly opinionated, very direct guy. Look him up if you don't know him. He's an interesting character, but he's super bright. And this quote says from him, "Company culture is just as important as the bottom line. People are your driving force, and creating a positive and empowering culture is essential for the success of your business. That means that you have to understand what your employees want at a deep level. You have to be constantly adapting to their needs and what they want from the organization, which will change and evolve over their time with you. Don't underestimate the power of investing in your employees. It's not just the right thing to do, it's also a smart business move." So with that, let me introduce you to these two fantastic, incredible female winery leaders. First, let's meet Remi. Remi is the Chief Executive Officer at Domaine Carneros under the French parent company Taittinger, and has been in this position for a little over 4 years. Prior to Domaine Carneros, Remi was the Chief Operating Officer and Director of Winemaking for Leedy Family Wines in Napa Valley, maturing with them over 8 years. Prior to her time with Leedy, she was the VP of Operations for Maryvale for 4 years and held winemaking and viticulture positions prior to that at Bouchain and Saintsbury. Today, Domaine Carneros is a 75,000 case producer employing 150 people. I first discovered Remi through an article that was written about her, and it illustrated her investment in developing her team. It was so refreshing to see an experienced, reputable winery leader invest in her people in such a personal, comprehensive way. I sort of had this vision of highlighting Remi for her accomplishments then, and it's come to fruition. She's here. So I'm so glad she agreed to be here today and share some of her secret sauce to running such an amazing organization. So thank you, Remi, for being here. Next, I'm honored to introduce you to Janie Brooks Heuck. Janie is the managing partner for Brooks Wine in the beautiful Willamette Valley. Janie has been with Brooks for almost 20 years. Before that, she didn't know anything about the wine industry. Her brother and the owner winemaker of Brooks, Jimmy, unexpectedly passed 20 years ago and was a treasured member of the wine growing community in Oregon. Janie immediately took over the winery in his honor and has been running it ever since. Back then, there were no employees but Jimmy. She's grown it to 18,000 cases and 35 employees, which she considers the maximum size she wants to be, and is now focused on continuous improvement. Brooks is one of the leaders in biodynamic farming in Oregon and is committed to driving sustainability across the organization. And I'll let Janie share more about those programs soon. I met Janie years ago on site when I was introducing her to InnoVint. She instantly impressed me, and not just her, but the caliber of her team as well. It was so clear that she was incredibly committed to their continuous growth, and just instantly got the impression that she was going to do whatever it takes to run the best business possible. She's sort of a winery rock star in Oregon for all she's done for the region and the state's wine industry. So for those of you outside of Oregon, now you know Janie's a very big deal. So thank you, Janie, for being here today.
Excited to be here.
All right, with that, let's dive into the content. Let's talk about your winery's cultural health. What does it mean to be culturally healthy? Why is the culture of your winery so important to you? Let's start with Remi.
Well, Laura did a great job touching on many things that we look at with cultural health. For us at Domaine Carneros, we really look at employee engagement. We have a unique philosophy of open book management, and that drives a lot of engagement, including everybody as a stakeholder within the company. And we evaluate engagement through participation in committees, team building activities, taking advantage of our benefits, and also employee advancement. So we have a culture of internal promotions here at Domaine Carneros, and that's something that we track, as well as employee retention. We have many employees who've worked here for more than 20 years.
Amazing. Thanks, Remi. We're going to dive into a lot of what she said momentarily, but I want to turn over to Janie. Janie, how do you define the cultural health, and why is it important to you?
You know, for us being smaller, I get to see everybody day to day, and being engaged in their work and trying to do their very best, to me, is kind of the result of a healthy culture. And part of what we do to support that is we're very clear with our communication in terms of the vision and mission and core competencies of the company, our performance reviews and expectations. And it really, for me, comes down to communication. Is everybody aware and confident of where the business is, where the leadership team is, where their managers are, and where they are in terms of their role and how they contribute to the overall picture?
Absolutely. I feel like given both your answers just now, it's clear that cultural gets set from the top in terms of how you lead, and leading with transparency. One of the things that I spoke to Remi about up front that impressed me was her strategic process and how she brings in leadership to be involved in future planning. Can you talk a little bit about that process, Remi? I know we have a slide here for that, Laura, because I was just very impressed by how mature that part of the business was.
Yeah, so our people-focused strategies begin with our overall company strategic planning. At Domaine Carneros, we develop a new strategic plan every 3 years and then create an annual quarterly tactical plan. We have at least 16 of our managers, plus about a total of about 25 of our 150-person team who are very actively involved in the strategic planning process. It's based on 3 pillars that you can see here, but the one I want to point out is the company cultivation pillar. That is the pillar that we focus on: the continuous cultivation of our employees, the culture of our company, the enhancement of our facilities. It's a pillar that's supported by human resources, admin, IT, and facilities, all of the supporting roles. And they do things like general wellness check-ins throughout the year, resource and workload planning. They evaluate efficiencies in workflow, whether through spatial analysis, new equipment or procedures, workload sharing, and they also do things like interdepartmental engagement and our annual wellness fair. And then I mentioned a little bit about our open book management, where we have transparency into our full company financials. So we have an all company meeting every month where we review departmental KPIs as well as updates to our strategic plan. And that helps drive engagement and stakeholdership into the company and awareness of the challenges of an individual as it relates to their department, but also their colleagues in other departments.
Having 25 people of 150-person team involved in strategy is a large percentage. It speaks to your ability to project manage that effectively, because a lot of chefs in the kitchen can get busy. Has that how has that been? Has that been a challenge, or do you have that streamlined at this point?
It seems to work pretty well. Again, it's divided into the 4 different pillars. So there's sub teams that support each pillar. And there's, a few drivers on the team in terms of the senior team members and managers. And I know in the conversation with Janie and what she had already mentioned about driving clear vision and mission, that's something that we do as well. And when we present the strategic plan to the entire company at those monthly company huddles, as well as updates to the progress we're making along the strategic plan, so that they can really see the engagement. Part of open book management, when you do transparency until you're down to the profit line, people want to know, well, where does that money go? And it's a reinvestment in the company, whether it be through sustainable facilities like solar or hospitality facilities or our people. They want to know. And it's been part of the fun process of the open book management, is to show the results of our efforts.
Fantastic. I mean, being transparent with financials is kind of the key element there, right? Bring them into where the company's been successful and where there has been challenges. Janie, I think you just talking about when you decided to focus on some of the sustainability programs that you did, and that evolution is really interesting in terms of developing kind of the brand identity in a way. Would you mind talking through your commitments here?
Sure. I was fortunate enough to inherit our commitment to biodynamic farming. My brother was a big leader in the movement for grapes here when he got to Oregon in the 90s. And, after his passing, we grew the winery to where we got to a volume that was kind of the right spot in terms of what we wanted to make and sell. And then we really shifted our attention to growth coming from continuous improvement. And so I kind of wanted to add my vision to what we already had as a very good base of sustainability commitment through our farming. And so in 2019, we became a certified B Corporation. The Oregon wine industry has more certified B corporations than any other wine region in the world, which is amazing. But it's a great process. It's a difficult process, but it really looks at different facets of your business, one of which being your team. And I learned a lot about different employee benefits. So our benefit structure is very robust for our team. And overall, it says that we're doing business for the sake of good and not just for profit. So we're very proud of that. We also became members of 1% for the Planet, where we donate 1% of our revenues back to an environmental-based nonprofit that's certified by the team at 1% for the Planet. We also became members of Ecology, which a portion of every dollar that's spent at Brooks goes into a fund that plants trees in different communities around the world, and that's providing jobs as well as helping the overall ecosystem for those places. And then in 2021, we went carbon neutral with our website. It's interesting in our industry that websites are lifestyle driven, and they're all about flashy pictures and high resolution this, and our websites all have a lot of photography on them. Well, that is a huge energy suck on the internet. If the internet was going to be a country by 2030, it would be the 3rd largest user of energy and have the biggest carbon footprint. So we wanted to do our little part. But what these things do for our cultures, I have people that apply to our company because we are certified. These certifications give us a lot of transparency to who we are as a company and what our culture is about. And one of the things I love about having these certifications is it keeps us very accountable as a company. You know, everybody uses these as much as and even more so than the pillars of what's in our mission and vision, to make sure that we are continuing in the right direction and doing, you know, the work that we say that we're doing.
I think it's impressive and incredible that you have incorporated this to be such a core component of your brand and your identity and the culture that you have developed. It'd be great to hear in the chat if anyone else out there has implemented any of these and sees that benefit as well. Speaking of benefits, that brings us to our next question. You both run wineries of different sizes, but you take your benefits programs just as seriously with the same amount of investment. Can you talk about your benefits programs and how you take care of your employees? The more specifics, the better. Let's start with Remi.
Great. Yes, I thought it was so interesting when we were meeting in advance of this call, how many similar programs that Janie's company and our company has, and it really shows that many of these things are scalable. For us, in addition to robust health benefits, 401k benefits, wine and hospitality benefits, we have an education reimbursement program here, a language learning reimbursement program, a wellness reimbursement program. All of these things I think Janie and Brooks has as well, which is really exciting to see it at different scales. One of the programs that we have that has been really successful and is part of how we track our culture is our mentorship program. When I first started, we wanted to bring in some external candidates for unique mentorship experiences that went above and beyond the typical harvest internship, year-round programs where they touch multiple departments. But I realized that before we brought in external candidates, which we do, that I wanted to create a robust internal mentorship program where employees can sign up to be paired with people on the management team to learn about areas, maybe even outside of their area of expertise. And they're all custom tailored programs, and almost every single one of them has resulted in a internal advancement or promotion within the company or a change in their position towards something that they were really passionate about. So that's something that I think we use to manage cultural health, is this internal advancement as part of our mentorship program.
For the mentorship program, can you speak a bit more about the specifics of how often they meet? Is it a one-on-one once a month? Is it, open Q&A? What does that look like?
It's really curated to the individual who is applying for the program. And it's been something as basic with people earlier in their career, having sit-down opportunities with people in different departments to understand what the role of the department is, what type of daily activities they execute, to try to guide their own career choices in their future when they really don't know exactly what they want, but they know they want to grow and learn and advance. And then there's been much more specific programs, as an example in winemaking, getting paired up with one of our senior winemakers, where they follow a vineyard block all the way through to harvest, winemaking, blending, bottling, and really take ownership of that program from the start to the finish. So they're really curated and cultivated based on the person, their interest, their current level within the company, and their current role within the company. But we've actually had some people switch from production into sales and marketing, and vice versa in our visitor center into production based on these experiences, which has been really great to see people find, discover, and cultivate their passion.
I can absolutely see that working for many wineries where you see the interest, right? Where they sort of feel like they're, pigeonholed into production, but they're interested in finance, or they're interested in the business operational side, and exposing them to that has got to be so valuable. So thank you, Remi, on behalf of your employees for allowing them to do that. Okay, Janie, how about you? What are some of the benefits programs you offer?
Yeah, so we obviously offer health, dental, vision, and we pay a little over 90% of the premium for that for our team. We also have a 401k, but we do a 5% match, which is a little outside of the norm. That's one of those standards that B Corp really pushed us to. We offer a financial planning consultation for people for their own personal lives. We do a reimbursement for tax return preparation for our team. Obviously, they get great wine and hospitality benefits at 50% off. One of the more interesting things that we do that, again, is B Corp inspired, is every employee gets up to 20 hours of paid volunteer time. How they volunteer and what they do and when they take it obviously needs to be approved, but people really love that. And it can be anything from something company related, or it can be something that they're personally passionate about, a certain, medical foundation or a walk or something that they want to do. So people really love that. We have some more kind of informal things that we do that everyone participates in. We have a monthly wellness challenge that we give out prizes for. We also have a green committee. So for those, which most of our team is obviously very green spirited about doing the right thing. And in that committee, it crosses departments, and we talk about everything from solar panels down to, how we're utilizing the water left over in a tasting room bottle from guests that didn't drink it. So
there was a lot just shared there by both of them. If you have any questions about any of that, please write in the Q&A, and we can loop back at the end and ask Remi and Janie. One thing that was mentioned is the wellness fair that you do, Remi, up front. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think that's an incredible offering for your team.
Yeah, definitely. So again, similar, we have so many similarities in our company. We have a sustainability committee too, and then we have what we call the Chateau Collective Committee, and that's what sometimes we call them our fun squad. They drive team building and team activities, and those two committees partner in creating our wellness fair, sustainability and wellness fair, where we highlight different vendors, community partners. You mentioned how important the engagement with the community is, and that's something we feel strongly with at Domaine Carneros. But basically, our team members can go to the Sustainability and Wellness Fair. They're encouraged to go from table to table, meet with our benefits providers, meet with service providers and nonprofits within the community, meet with some individual members of our sustainability team, of our safety team, of our Chateau Collective Fun Squad, and learn and engage more about all sorts of things in the community wellness. There's health checks, there's massages that are voluntary and things like that. And then there's prizes and fairs. Similarly, we have some wellness challenges too that are also raffle winners and things like that just drive engagement, they drive fun. And I do think it is one of the ways that we assess our company culture is how much passion goes behind the teams and the participation in these fun activities.
That's amazing. If you attendees take anything away from this part of the segment of the webinar, it's you can do this. At any size and scale, you can implement wellness and benefits programs like this to drive value for your team. From Remi's size to Janie's size, and my team size is about the same size as Janie's, and I've had a well-being stipend for many, many years because I understand that I want people to be fulfilled in what they do for InnoVint in their professional lives and also their personal lives. So there are a lot of things that you can do, and there's some baby steps that you can take to do better in this category. All right, next one is measurement of cultural health. This one could be a little bit harder or not. I think you both have some good examples of how you measure this. Let's start with Janie. Janie, how do you measure cultural health?
We do a couple things. We do an annual survey of our team, and one of the interesting things about being our size is we have a pretty good indication, I think, even going into the survey. But by doing that survey, we can see if there's any weak spots, and then we share those results with the team and then ask for anonymous input about any of the areas that might have been weaker than others. There's an example of the survey that we used last year. And it really ranges from everything with their personal development of relationships with coworkers to ongoing learning and whether or not they're getting opportunities to grow. So this is the one that, again, B Corp inspired. Anybody really looking to take up their employee game should do the B Corp assessment. Because there's really, I've learned a ton as an employer actually from going through that process. Another thing that we utilize are not so much a turnover rate, because we're so small that those numbers, it doesn't take much for them to look really abnormal or really normal. But we conduct exit interviews, and in those exit interviews, really trying to identify the person's departure and whether or not that was at all related to the company. And typically we can do that because we sit down with everybody and understand why they come to Brooks in the first place. Like, what brought them there? Is it just a temporary job and you're looking to move on because you're in school and you need to earn some money? Or is this your lifelong career? And what does that path look like? So we spend a lot more time in conversation than we do in actual true measuring turnover. I also look at who takes advantage of all the benefits that we offer. That's a really good indication of engagement and whether or not they think that it's unique to Brooks to be able to take advantage and have the opportunity to have those different benefits. And same thing with engagement, just looking at committee participation, or if we're bought tickets for the St. Paul Rodeo, how many people are actually going? We do try to do some fun events like that for our team. We have an all company meeting every year too, and do a big dinner afterwards. So just people's engagement overall is probably the best way for us to measure KPIs in terms of culture at Brooks, just because we're so small.
That makes a lot of sense. I think participation is huge and engagement is huge. How about you, Remi?
Yes, many similarities for us being a slightly bigger with employee retention and tenure. That is something that we do track and also reward. So annually we have an employee breakfast awards where employees get recognition and a little financial bonus for tenure at the 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30-year mark. So we have a couple 30-year employees, over a handful of over 20-year employees, which is really exciting. So they get recognition in the awards as well as a little financial bonus. And actually, if you're an employee at Domaine Carneros for 10 years or more, you get a certain, some of our wine club benefits for life. So things like, discounted or complimentary tastings and purchases and things like that. So kind of a fun little thing that we do here. Another kind of component to touch on is our self-auditing process that we do as part of our DEI component. So we do have a DEI committee as well. And then myself and our director of HR, we are really focused on self-auditing annually to make sure that the diversity of our team is reflected in the diversity of our management, that people are moving, a diverse type of people are moving up within the company, and also have been spending a lot of time in California. This is becoming more and more relevant as the laws are changing about pay banding equity. So not even just within a department, making sure that people are getting paid similarly for the roles that they are fulfilling within a department, but also across departments. If there are similar skill sets needed that in the vineyard, as in production, as in, let's say, our call center, that there's pay banding equity across all of those different departments as well.
Amazing. Amazing. If I'm to add one more anecdote to all those amazing examples of measurement, if you're very data driven, one simple thing to employ is something called an ENPS score. If you haven't heard of it, Google it. It's one question to ask your employees, and it's on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely is it that you would recommend working for our company? It's a really powerful metric, and there's a gradient that they give you for that. But that's another just very quick baseline to understand how satisfied your employees are too. We have some really good questions coming in, so I'm going to keep moving so we can get to those. Next, and importantly, let's talk about where we see wineries making some cultural mistakes and negatively impacting that. Janie, do you have any examples you want to share?
Yeah, there's a couple of basic ones, right? That if you don't have a mission and vision guiding principles, it's really hard to be consistent and to have clear communication for your team. Also, the same thing with lack of performance reviews. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. It's a very important component for feedback. But I think overall, you have to look at your people as part of your investment, right? They're as important as the grapes that you're buying and the guests that are coming into the tasting room in your wine club, they're more important actually, because they are the ones that really orchestrate the vision of your business across all aspects of it. And so I just think it's super important to invest in people. At the end of the day, it's like, it's really what life's about. And we have an opportunity by having a business platform to make a difference in people's lives. And that's really what I hope to do for my employees.
And I will say too, in just the prep call with Janie, it's so nice and refreshing to hear how, you know, her tasting room staff is on the equivalent level of everyone else at Brooks. It is, you know, the representation of her brand, of all of your brands. So very, very important to take care of them, of course. Remi, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with everything Janie said. I think a lot of times, especially smaller wineries, don't have an actual HR department or a dedicated person. Sometimes it's an afterthought, or somebody who has another role or responsibility is kind of taking care of the basics of HR, as opposed to, kind of similar to what Janie was saying, having a people-focused strategy where you're investing in the team. So to me, I think that's a really critical thing, is to really make that investment in people. And that begins with the proper onboarding of the team, really a thoughtful and comprehensive onboarding. Janie mentioned the review process. That's a critical to get that feedback. You know, we do 3-month and 6-month check-ins with the direct supervisor, but then also with human resources, and then at least annual check-ins thereafter, unless we're also potentially on a performance development plan, not just a corrective action one, but somebody who's expressed interest in developing in their career. We can work together with them on plans. Things like maintaining clear job descriptions. Sometimes jobs change over time, and it's important to make sure that those job descriptions are updated and expectations are made very clear to each individual, so that they know. It was the first question on Janie's survey was, do you know what's expected of you? And to make that very clear to people, that what's expected of them, and then having them being guided by the overall vision and mission of the company while understanding their role is just so important. And then for us, you know, I mentioned the mentorship program, but just providing continual training and educational opportunities, which we do obviously about our wine and our vineyards, but taking that to another level, like, or offering things like Excel classes, Finance 101, things that help people in their personal lives and their careers that go beyond just their contribution. So I think ultimately, you know, I think we both agree, or all agree here, that, you know, offering a set of benefits that go beyond the basics actually makes your company stronger. So it might seem like these things are difficult to invest in, especially for small companies, and even for really big companies, because it just seems cumbersome, and how do you touch all the individuals? But this investment is an investment in your business continuity and your resiliency and succession planning, leadership development, and it's so important. It's an investment in the company, not just in the people.
Amen to that, Remi. I love all that. And actually, you brought up a good point and question that perhaps, Janie, you can help answer, is what if they are a smaller winery? Most small wineries do not have internal HR. What are their options for improving this? Would you recommend working with a fractional HR consultant? Where can they find more information about how to develop this?
You know, what we do, because I am the point person for HR at our company, I have used, our insurance comes through a company called Vigilant, which is a employee law firm. So by buying our health benefits through them, we in turn pay a membership fee, $300 a month or something very small. And I have complete access to any kind of HR questions, issues, resolutions, advice that I need. So that's a way that it really works for us, because it doesn't make sense for us to have a full-time HR person. Similarly, I hired a HR consultant to help me design our performance review tool, to make sure that it was, you know, obviously has the science behind it that you need for performance tools to make sure they're effective, but also is tailored to the size of our company and the type of our business, and really works for us. So there definitely are resources out there that can help on a consulting standpoint, that really are kind of a one-time use and need once you get those things developed.
Great advice. I'll also add too that we take performance reviews very seriously at InnoVint too, and we use a software platform called Lattice that manages that. It manages like one-on-one content and agenda all the way through performance reviews. It's been really effective, so I recommend that to folks too, if that's of interest. All right, last piece, 1 to 2 pieces of advice that you have for new or current wineries looking to improve their cultural health. Remi, you want to go first?
Well, I think we touched on it to some degree, but really sitting and evaluating whether or not you have a people-focused strategy. That has to be a component of your overall business and strategic plan. So assuming you have a overall company strategic plan and mission and vision, like we've touched on a few times, but then making sure that that your values that build upon the mission and vision have a people-focused component to it. I mean, a lot of us know that our vineyards and our wineries are huge assets, and we're so fortunate to live in these beautiful places and have these great natural and abundance of beautiful resources here. But the people are the most important thing that drives the company, and so really creating a people-focused strategy, whether that's through many of the different benefits programs, through culture development programs, through learning and educational opportunities, through HR functions and the reviewing and onboarding, all of those types of things are really critical. Just generally a people-focused strategy.
Thank you. How about you, Janie?
I would get back to mission and vision, but I want to give you some background on, because that can always feel very daunting. And I actually drafted my first one. I read a couple different business books and got into the Ask Why 5 times and all the things. And so I drafted this great mission and vision and core competencies and sent it out to my management team and asked them for their feedback. And I heard from 1 out of 7 people. And I thought, okay, that's not going to work. So we actually did an offsite retreat one day to fine tune that vision and mission and the core competencies, what makes us different, and it really brought so much more broadness to it in terms of, the gardener has a very different perspective than the director of marketing or our winemaker. And we got it done in half a day. And by doing that, I also then had buy-in from my complete leadership team, because they all believed in it as well, because they all helped to write it. So that's what I would say. I think it's really important, especially to start with your leadership team and then to use that as a hiring tool for everybody else.
I agree strongly with that, Janie. And I'll give an InnoVint anecdote too, which leads us perfectly into the first question from someone, which is I developed operating principles for InnoVint that we have in place now that are very strong. And they're so strong because they were developed in a collaborative fashion. We had an all hands retreat where I got everyone together and we used, Post-its and sticky pads and whiteboard, what everyone thought we embody as a company. So that was our first brainstorm. And then from there, you kind of, whittle that down with a smaller group and you get to a point, but you get buy-in that way. And it's so effective and powerful that now we have an InnoVintner of the Quarter award that we give out for those that embody those operating principles. And it's just been a very fulfilling process for InnoVint. So I recommend what Janie said as well. All right, speaking of strategic meetings, Remi, this question's for you. You mentioned that there are quite a few staff members that participate in the strategic meetings. What types of roles and titles do you have participate in those? Managers, VPs, team leads, etc.
Yes, so each pillar is a little different. So estate, vineyards, and winemaking, we have our sparkling winemaker, our still winemaker, our director of vineyards, our viticulturist, and our associate winemaker are kind of the leads on that, but they're working with our production bottling line manager, our inventory manager. They're also involved in that. Brand recognition and sales growth is our chief sales and marketing officer, and her direct reports, wine club and fulfillment director, director of marketing, director of hospitality, and then they're also involving some of their just next level management, events manager, retail merchandise manager, shipping manager. That's some kind of similar examples. Sustainability is, we have individuals from every department on in that pillar. It's led by our viticulturist, who's also our sustainability chair, but they're also people from every department at different levels, pushing and driving our sustainability pillar. And then I mentioned company cultivation is the head of HR, head of IT, head of facilities, and a few people from our administration team in general.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think the other, because we were talking about strategic planning and mission and vision, and we repeat that process every 3 years. And in advance of that process, similarly to you and Janie, we do just another kind of values exercise where about the entire management team sits down and lists our values, like a very fresh way to do it, rather than looking at our existing statements of values and core competencies. We just brainstorm it from the beginning, and then we relate that back to the mission and vision statement, and make sure that all those things are represented either in the company-wide mission and vision or in the pillar mission and vision. And after that exercise, then we do a SWOT where each of the pillars does a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then together we regroup and then vote on like the top 10 strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then when we go through the strategic plan, we relate it back to the SWOT analysis to make sure that all of those things are being addressed at either the company-wide mission and vision or the pillar mission and vision. So it's a 10-year vision, and then the 3-year plan with the 1-year tactical.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Remi. Another related question for either of you from Emily. When you don't have a culture that looks like the examples given today, do you feel that it can be implemented departmentally to some degree, or does it really have to come from the top down?
I think it comes departmentally from natural leaders. I think, people who themselves care about company culture and care about their teams. But not everybody's like that, right? You might get somebody whose skill set is much more technology driven or production driven or farming driven and hasn't had a lot of experience managing employees. So I think finding those examples maybe within the company that are at any level, you could use as a starting team to build something like a mission and vision or do a survey and come up with opportunities for improvement and what that would look like. I think you really just want to start, not so much, hopefully your top leader has the vision too for the culture. But I think anybody who really is sensitive to company culture and wants the best for the company could participate in developing any of these types of programs.
Yeah, I agree. And I think some of our strongest ideas that have become really important values in our company have not come from management. I can think of, we won a sustainability award last year for our packaging reuse and packaging reuse program. And that was came from our packaging manager who works on ordering all the materials. She's thinking, gosh, if we recycle all of and reuse all these boxes that we break down to pour wine here in the tasting room or to break out and sell individual bottles. She was the one who came up with this idea, and we track and trace it, and we've saved over 1 million packages over the last decade. The idea of having our Chateau Collective Committee, our fun squad, that came from an employee that wasn't in senior management. So ideally, you, like both Janie and Ashley have mentioned, ideally you have the support of the senior management, and that they're excited to welcome these ideas and to take examples from individual departments and apply them to others. If you don't, you're probably going to get stuck in a bit of a rut if you don't have that open-minded leadership. But I definitely think an individual department or team can drive culture and make really cool examples for the rest of the company.
Love that. That's a great example. All right, next question. This one's good. How would you navigate a situation where you wanted ownership to sign off on some of these programs and the spend, but the owners have a hard time seeing the value or perhaps do not place the same value on employees?
Look for a new job. I mean, you want to work in a place where things are supported. And if people can't find, if it's just not a priority for the company, but it's a priority for you, you really got to look at your fit. I mean, I mean that seriously, even though it was kind of funny.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do a lot of just career coaching for people in general. And one of the things I always tell people is you don't just work for your job has to work for you. So the company that you work at has to be delivering things for you. Yes, obviously you get your paycheck, but are you feeling fulfilled? Are you being able to grow, develop, learn, advance in your career? If that's what you want, not everybody's going to want that. But are they providing you the things that you need, the tools, the safety, the support, the acknowledgement, all the things we've been talking about today? Is the company providing that for you? Because ultimately it's a tight job market, and you can go work for Janie and, or Ashley. So I think really I completely agree with what you said. I bet that if that company is not open-minded, that they are going to be having a lot of turnover, and it's a short-sighted view, because an investment in people is an investment in the resiliency and the strength of your company.
Yeah, I would add to both of those and say that if this is something you're really passionate about, to put together a business case for it as to why it would drive value for the organization. It doesn't have to be anything super formal, but just kind of weigh like the pros of doing it and the cons of not doing it. And if they still don't respond positively, or at least hear you out on that, then yeah, you need to look at other options there. But they should at least hear you out if you present it in such a way where you can show the value that it would bring.
And you can share some of the slides from your survey, the InnoVint survey that you presented earlier.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I have a couple more questions here. 8 minutes left. For the Brooks survey, why do you ask if an employee has a best friend at work? What do you hope to find out with that question?
I mean, you spend 8 hours of your day, right, at work, and I think it's positive for people to have friendships, and it definitely allows us to evaluate friendships versus professionalism as well. That if we know that there's a lot of best friends, is the work still getting done? But at the end of the day, the camaraderie, I personally love to see, and I did not develop that survey, but I love to see, we have a whole group of our busing team. They get together on Friday nights and play video games after they're done at work. So, you spend so much time with each other when you're at work, that I personally, at least for a lot of people, hope that friendships do develop for them.
Yeah, I would say too, we ask that as well on internal surveys, and it is an internal survey best practice question. And I would say too, it's just, you want them to have a sense of community at your company. And that's a way of indicating that they feel safe. Having a best friend at work means that they feel safe. They have someone to go to if they're having struggles, and that you have, developed that communal sense effectively for them. Okay, let's see. Can you share examples of monthly wellness challenges?
Sure. Hydration, water. So we'll do how many ounces of water you drink, and put a minimum out there in terms of, the recommended amounts based on your body size and your type. And then people keep track of that if they've done it for different days. Eating X number of vegetables, getting exercise. So we come up with all sorts of different ones and change them once a month. So there's always an overriding theme for the team. And sometimes we'll do meditation, relaxation. How many books did you read in the month? I mean, it spans a wide range of wellness, not just diet, exercise, and water, but also just mental health aspects too.
Anything to add to that, Remi? I think you do.
Ours is a little more basic. The main one we use is Walker Tracker, where you can put in, it monitors your steps, or you can put in other exercise that you might be doing. And then we usually do raffle prizes weekly based on not just the top performer, because it's not always the most fair, but we'll raffle out on the top 10 engaged employees or top 5 engaged employees on the app.
Awesome. Great. All right, next question. When you have a great culture, can you reduce some sales spiffs and commissions, or are more spiffs a critical part of a great culture?
Well, for us, I mean, we start with living wage, which is different than minimum wage for all of our full-time employees. But I truly believe that the more money people can make, the better. We have some pretty robust incentive programs in our tasting room, but we also, I pay them extra money for our team to have tips. And, that's obviously money that I'm not paying out, but that's money that they get. I don't think, we have a hybrid also. Some goals are individual and some goals are team oriented. So we try to keep a balance there too, that you're working for both ends. You're working for each other as much as you're working for yourself. And if they achieve goals, I think that they should be rewarded.
Yeah, I think a hybrid's probably the most successful. Greg Ward, we just did an HR and leadership training workshop with him, and I forget the source of the data, but he had shown that benefits and company culture were actually stronger, more heavily weighted by survey respondents than actual compensation, which I think is was eye-opening for me. But I think it's both. We like to have a culture of acknowledgement through many different benefits that we have, and also just a general culture of acknowledgement. But similarly to Janie, both individual and team benefits, and whether it's through commissions or bonuses or things like that, are definitely valuable.
Yeah, I would say too, it also comes back to that quote that I shared earlier about knowing that your employees' motivations can change over time. Perhaps they're 22 and very financially motivated at that time, but then they get married and have kids and they actually are looking for more balance in their life, and maybe financially they're not as motivated, or it's not their top motivator anymore. So those are things to also consider as you evolve and develop your culture over time. All right, last question is a financial one. What does approximate total employee cost look like as a % of total operating cost? Either of you know that off the top of your head?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many tangibles and intangibles, and things are built into so many different functions. Do they mean just like salary, or? I mean, even that's tough because you got some built into cost of goods and some built into SGA.
Mm-hmm.
I'd need a minute.
Okay, yeah, we have to go look at the P&L for that.
I mean, people are definitely our second biggest cost after production.
There you go. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much. I think Laura's going to pop back on here and take us home. But Janie, Remi, thank you so much. So valuable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yes, thank you to all three of you. Wow, what a great, so much insight. I'm very excited to share it. We'll be sharing the slides. I know there was some great takeaways included in today's session. And as I mentioned, we'll be sharing the recording, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you for everyone that has joined across all three of our sessions. I have the link on the screen here, the URL that you can go to catch all the recordings. But again, we'll be sharing those out with everyone after today's session. If you have any questions, feel free to follow up with that email. Otherwise, thank you to our panelists again, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.